Our next presenter is Marc Strous from the Department of Geosciences at the University of Calgary. Marc has made many groundbreaking contributions to microbial ecology, biogeochemistry, and environmental biotechnology, and sparked a major revision of the global biogeochemical nitrogen cycle concept. His career has been marked by the discovery of new pathways in biochemistry, microbial symbiosis. Strous is currently building on his ecology and engineering expertise to create a feasible, sustainable, net negative carbon dioxide emissions biotechnology for counteracting climate change.
So my presentation has the title From Alkaline Soda Lakes to Climate Change and From Microbial Mats to Gatorade. Now let's dive right in. So this slide, I think, is a really nice visualization of the current exceptional situation we find ourselves in. Never before has humankind witnessed these type of CO2 concentrations in the air. So when you track the time back in this graph, you see the discovery of Bitcoin, right down to the Industrial Revolution, the Roman Empire, the first civilization, the end of the last ice age, the start of the last ice age, the first signs of modern humans, and the first signs of Neanderthals. Never before have we seen something like this. And it's even more interesting when you think about the speed things are changing at. So when things continue as they will in the next 15 years, which I think is quite likely, in 2034, the CO2 concentration will be 460 ppm. So that's last seen during the Middle Miocene, 15 million years ago, when the temperature was on average 3 degrees warmer and the sea level 17 meters higher. Now, it will take a couple of centuries before the Earth adapts to that CO2 concentration, but it shows in which direction we're heading. And today we notice a lot of effects of climate change, like melting sea ice, mountain pine beetles, floods, forest fires, and it's no surprise that we talk about that a lot. And I think this is an interesting page from CBC News, where it's almost all about climate change, promising green technology, how can we meet our emissions targets, strange weather events, and how do we make the shift? So it's a very, very front and center, even during this exceptional pandemic we find ourselves in right now. What the IPCC has indicated is that it's going so fast that that stopping our emissions is not enough. We actually have to start pulling CO2 out of the air to keep the worst away. And you see this kind of blue lines that should do that is called bioenergy with carbon capture and storage. Now I'm an engineer and I ask myself, can biotechnology help out? I worked in many institutes in Europe, mainly on quite fundamental problems in microbial ecology, and realized lots of exciting discoveries, all very fundamental. So when the University of Calgary recruited me from Europe, I thought, well, maybe it's time to try to give something back and to try to focus on an actual application and see if we can do something about it. And of course, you may ask yourself, well, is that even possible? And I certainly did. I think, this might be an impossible quest, but let's try it. I think we should try it because it's so important. And even if we fail, maybe, one of these technologies will succeed. So that's what I set out. And as an engineer and a microbial ecologist, I started out my work in Calgary with two innovations. And the first one was to look at a natural environment called alkaline soda lakes. So we've heard about peatlands before. Alkaline soda lakes is another environment that is very good at growing biomass and pulling CO2 out of the air. So this chemistry is like laundry. It's very alkaline, and the CO2 spontaneously goes into the lakes. Now in these lakes grow thick microbial mats. So they are bacteria, cyanobacteria, that very rapidly grow. And when you look at sediment cores, so you see those sediment cores here on the right, you see that actually they're turned over really fast. They don't preserve. So it's an excellent opportunity to do some biotechnology, to convert the CO2 to biomass and then onwards, ultimately putting it into the ground. So that's called bioenergy with carbon capture and storage. So this is something that hadn't been done before in let's say, in this type of biotechnology. So the other innovation is that when scientists and engineers grow algae for these type of purposes, they typically start by saying, well, this algae is really fantastic. That's the one we should use. Examples are Duniella and Glabinomonas. And they say, well, this is, you know, a super algae. We should use this algae. And it's just like Superman. And when you start to talk about Superman, very soon you start thinking of kryptonite. And that's exactly what happens in many of these biotechnologies. These monocultures of Superman are very vulnerable to predators, ecological predators like this Schmidingrotrix, who eats the algae and makes sure that the process doesn't really work when you scale it. So these were the two innovations that led me. And then innovation, sorry, is not doing that, but staging a kind of microbial Hunger Games, saying we don't care who will become our Superman. We're gonna have this race to get a team of microbes that really works well together and is robust and won't get eaten by these predators. So those were the two innovations I started working with in Calgary. Now, over the years, many students have worked on this project, very talented students, and they've taken this process from very tiny scale, just 1 centimeter, a little bit of soda lake, microbial mats grown in the lab, and slowly over the years, we scaled that up in these kind of tubes and all kinds of growth systems, growing and growing. Ultimately, last year, we staged our first outdoor experiment. You see all these tubes below. And then this year, we staged our second outdoor experiment. So it's really exciting to take the technology to this scale. And it was also quite a challenge this year to get this going with the COVID epidemic. But it's nice that we could do this outside. And you know, this all really grateful to my students who made this possible. Question is, does it work? Well, we're just getting our results together of our pilot plant experiment. And you see here some results going through the Calgary summer from July into October. What you see is that in the top graph that the light in the beginning was high, it kind of decreased. Also the temperature peaks and kind of decreased, but all the while we see growth. Most importantly, that growth also happens when the pH was stable in the final part of the experiment, showing that we're actually able to get the CO2 out of the air. So that's really exciting, and that's something that shows, you know, you can actually do this. You can get CO2 out of the air, convert it to biomass. You could then convert the biomass to methane, which is natural gas, burn it, and store it under the ground. So that would be a technology capable of doing that. The question is that feasible or desirable when you go to a larger scale? And this is a little bit of a complex slide, but it shows something very important. So on the left, when you think about solar and wind energy, solar and wind energy are currently already cheaper than running natural gas or coal-fired power plants. So it's actually cheaper to produce energy in a renewable way. And when you think about the amount of land needed for all current electricity manufacturing and road transportation in Alberta, it's this black square on the map. So that looks really good. There's good economy and little land. How is that possible? Well, the amazing thing is that electrical cars are so extremely efficient. So you need actually less energy than we're using now to get around. When you think about other ways that scientists like me and others are trying, you get to like things like synthetic fuel, the costs really blow up. Now you put that, you know, precious fuel into gasoline cars that are only less than 30% efficient. So when you scale this and think about what would be needed to undo 30% of Alberta emissions since 1990 in 1 century, right? So now we're talking 21st century where we've undone 30% of emissions. You need much more land. It's also very expensive. So what this slide shows is that even though we can do this, maybe it's not the right thing for it. So that's interesting, but I think it's important as a scientist to realize that not everything you conceive works out the way you hope. Fortunately, there's other ways forwards for us. So what my team discovered is that they can convert these algae, these cyanobacteria, into a really nice, high quality blue color that could replace synthetic blue colors in products like M&Ms and Gatorade. And because we developed this technology to be actually really totally very cheap, we can do this at a really low and competitive price. So we think the market for this blue color is going to grow to like $500 million a year. And the nice thing is it's carbon negative. So this way you can help the climate by eating M&Ms or drinking Gatorade. So I would like to conclude. So climate change at the moment looks irreversible. The foreseeable technology lacks environmental, economic, social, and political feasibility. So we really have to focus on emissions reductions. Not good to end up in the Miocene, but it's a lot better than the Paleocene or the Eocene. The good news is that this actually can save money. So adoption of electrical cars, installation of renewable power will make our lives better and will help our economy. And then a multitude of innovations will replace current products, like what I showed you for the blue collar, with economic, low emission, healthy alternatives. This is a giant opportunity for economic growth, and that's really important because the energy transition is not going to be easy, and it's important to give people other ways of living than working with our carbon economy. Science outcomes are unpredictable, and returns on investment in science are huge. In this case, 10 million investment for all the research we did, leading to hundreds of millions of growth, economic growth, as well as emissions reduction. So I'm still optimistic. And I would end with the acknowledgement my family, students, mentors, and colleagues, and all the sponsors who helped us over the years. Thank you.